start his company knowing that this issue was coming, way ahead of the curve, and he's doing a heck of a job. I'd like to introduce John LaPlaca.
Thank you, Senator Murphy. Pleasure to be here today to speak. Our firm, Altaris Consulting Group, works exclusively with K-12 schools in the area of safety, security, and emergency preparedness. We founded the firm back in 2008. As the Senator mentioned, I'm a former law enforcement administrator. We are based here in Westchester County, so the body of our work is in the Hudson Valley region. We work with approximately 200 schools here in the Hudson Valley and across Long Island. There is not a district administrator, as the three individuals to my right will attest to, that does not lose sleep over safeguarding the building occupants in each of their schools. And while the 24-hour news cycle would suggest otherwise, schools continue to be the safest places to work and to grow. Unfortunately, when something does occur in a school, it takes on a new dimension because of the precious assets that are within those school buildings. And the reason, one of the primary reasons why schools are statistically safer environments to work and grow is because of the proactiveness of school districts like Putnam Valley, like Lakeland, like Hendrick Hudson. It is an ongoing effort. Expertise. And all schools struggle with this concept. That goes on and on and on. There is no one measure that makes schools safer. It is a layered approach. It is about infrastructure. It is about technology. It is about people. And while many of the knee-jerk reactions in schools is to move forward with large expenditures on cameras and metal detectors and many of the things that the stakeholders in the community ask for, it really comes down to the fact that technology does not respond to emergencies. People do. And it's important that everyone in the district has the ability to, whenever possible, prevent, and when necessary, to respond effectively to those emergencies. In the wake of a critical incident, there's always difficulty. Prevent things from happening is how do you respond effectively? And it crosses a large spectrum of things. There was a study that was done many years ago by the U.S. Secret Service, talked about the profile of active shooters in schools, which always seems to float to the top as far as some of the threats towards schools. And there is no profile. But the one thing that did come out of those studies was the fact that someone knew something about what happened, but just did fail to come forward with that information because they didn't think it was important or they didn't recognize the warning signs. The best way to manage an emergency is to prevent it from happening in the first place. And that's why mental health has to float to the top of all these discussions to make sure that we're doing a good job of preventing and identifying these kids that are being bullied, that are in isolation, that represent a threat. And we've seen in the most recent events, the same situation has come up that these things should not have happened. But in many cases, things are not preventable. We understand that. While active shooters and things of that sort always are front and center in the conversations about school violence, schools are faced with a number of different threats, all types of infrastructure failures and weather-related emergencies. So they have to take an all-hazards approach to these things. But when it comes to the mental health issue, you have to work in conjunction with your parents, with your student base, and with your employees. The SRO concept is a large part of that mental health component. It's not about, the armed presence in the schools, school resource officers, that's a fringe benefit of that role. Having been an administrator involved with the school resource officer program here in Yorktown, I can tell you that the main focus is them being ambassadors in the schools, to have their ears to the ground, to be able to effectively work in conjunction. They become part of the culture of schools and identify things before they happen. The last thing a school wants to do is to get a child involved in the criminal justice system, ever. So the focus on it is prevention. Hardening of schools is a wide gamut of improvement opportunities that are available to schools. For all we do about keeping people out of our schools, many times the threat, unfortunately, is within the school itself. So you have to look at both perimeter security of the schools as well as internally, how do you respond effectively to emergencies. But again, it's an ongoing conversation. Safety, security, and emergency preparedness has to continue to be top of mind. The people behind me in uniform train on a regular basis, and even with all of that training, when they're faced with a critical incident, it's stressful, and there are failures at times. Imagine now being a school administrator who maybe receives training once a year for a small period of time. It's very difficult for them to to float to the top and respond effectively when they're managing large-scale events every day in their schools, because that's essentially what a school is a large-scale event. So it's important that they're constantly trained, their plans are effective, and they focus on all the improvement opportunities that are available to them. And fortunately, it's been a partnership with our firm and many school districts in the area, and I think many schools are safer today because of the proactiveness of all these districts. Thank you.
John, thanks. Appreciate it.